Spend some time talking about preaching little ideas. One of the things that happens in the classroom regularly in a system where we advocate preaching big ideas, the main thoughts of a particular paragraph of a story, is the fact that those big ideas usually occur early in a chapter or a section, sometimes even early in a paragraph or in a scene of a story. It's just the way in which ideas are communicated in Scripture. Often the big ideas come first, the little ideas follow. So what happens is we get caught working our way down through a text. We get caught having to preach the little ideas. So one of the questions that keeps coming up is, if we happen to have selected a text that is a little idea, and we know that's true, I mean, we just know that it's subordinate, it's feeding into an earlier idea, well, what do we do with it? Do we just discount it? And so it's something to think about, and I think it happens to a lot of us. So what do we do? How do we preach the small idea? And the bottom line is we have to somehow link it back to the big idea. Let me give you an example. An example is found, again, I've made a shift from, rather than preaching out of Isaiah, we're now in Romans chapter 12. So in Romans chapter 12, you've got a few verses that are devoted to spiritual gifts. So there's a list of gifts given. I think there are 7. I think if I remember correctly, there are 7 gifts listed in that Romans 12 passage. So all the gifts are listed and then how to use them. But they're all small ideas. And there's a difference between just preaching the spiritual gifts versus preaching the spiritual gifts in the context of the bigger ideas that open the chapter. So I've got those in front of me here. So look at the difference. We don't want to just preach about spiritual gifts without linking those little ideas to the subject of presenting your bodies as a living sacrifice, which starts Romans 12, right? I beseech you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, and so forth. Most very familiar with the text. So the chapter starts with the instruction for all of us Christians to present our bodies. Spiritual gifts is just a part of that. So if I were to say, well, what's wrong if you don't use your spiritual gift? The answer is not just that the body suffers because of it, and that's partly true. The answer is, if I don't use my spiritual gift, that's a signal that I have not presented my body to God. It's the same thing. You can link spiritual gifts to, don't be conformed to the world, verse 2, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So in a sense, all the subject of, or all the thinking and talk about spiritual gifts has to be linked back to that as well. So when you preach the small idea, you have to realize that it's going to mean something and apply differently than if it's connected to the larger idea. Can you preach the small idea? Sure. Preach the small idea about spiritual gifts, but remember that they really have impact when they're linked to the larger ideas. In this case, what's driving the opening of Romans 12 is this subject of, since we've received the mercies of God, let's be moved by the mercies of God and present your bodies, which includes the way in which we use the supernatural ability that God has given us.